I was choosing as a title for my talk Applied Humanities in a Data-Enabled Society. And if I'm talking about a data-enabled society, I'm referring to a joint paper that I've written with the members from ALEA on one hand and the Royal British Society on the other in 2019, namely Flourishing in a Data-Enabled Society. This is a ALEA discussion paper. The ALEA is the organization of all European academies. And the paper will be accessible via this presentation. I will give you the presentation afterwards as well. And I will refer to this publication during the talk a little bit. If I'm talking about my work, I'm referring to two different places of organization, namely Exploration Space at the Austrian Academy of Sciences and as Electronica Research Institute Knowledge for Humanities on the other. Exploration Space was funded by myself in 2017, late in November. It was organizationally embedded as a working group, as a space. Currently, it is a movement for innovation and experimentation with the aim to transform the humanities. So it is very much related to boost innovation in the humanities and look into the humanities and humanities knowledge. And the Electronica Research Institute is an interdisciplinary research institute. It was funded by myself and currently I'm chairing it since 2019. This is a research institute which is aiming to accelerate knowledge into action, to rethink genres and to contribute to invent a more inclusive and more sustainable future. So it is no more just related to the humanities, but rather to looking into how to bridge the gap between academic knowledge on the one hand and applications on the other. But for sure, due to the fact that I have a very strong background in the humanities, mainly looking into humanities knowledge. And that's a little bit what I try to figure out a little bit what I mean by this and give you an idea of the journey that I'm taking. Both of these initiatives are acting against the background of open innovation in science, and we are defining open innovation with focus and Jasperol. I'm referring to this citation that I quote now. Open innovation is a distributed process based on purposefully managed knowledge flows across organizational boundaries and using pecuniary and non-pecuniary mechanisms. And we are as well working together with Marcel Bogus in applying this definition on our work. So we are actually working together with the people that are defining the concept themselves. Both of the places are organizational units, Exploration Space on the one hand, and as Electronica Research Institute Knowledge for Humanities are already best practice examples for open innovation of the Austrian government. The Austrian government is one of the governments that has decided to build an open innovation strategy, and we are trying to apply this strategy, this open innovation strategy to science as well. Another relevant concept that we are working with is humanity-centered design, originating in Federico Donnelly's approach, where he is defining humanity in a threefold way, namely human, which means good to people, human referring to the totality of human beings, the society, and finally human as the counterpart in the human-machine interaction. And referring to these three, let's say, paradigms of the concept, we are applying participatory methods and open innovation on the one hand. We are looking into the sustainable development goals and aiming for social innovation on the other. And finally, we are looking into digital humanism and extended intelligence, referring to the counterpart of human-machine dualism. Firstly, I would like to talk a little bit about the data-enabled society and benefits and as well challenges that are related to it. In our work, we detected mainly opportunities that were related to healthcare, showed out public policy and services, and finally, opportunities for data for social good and the sustainable development goals. But on the other hand, we have realized that European values might get into tension thoroughly related to privacy, autonomy, rationality, equality, and the dignity and flourishing of people. There are unequal skills and opportunities for people to acquire these skills. There are biases related to the data, to the workflows, and so on, and that are furthering as well within the tools. For example, the city of Vienna is therefore currently aiming to get the #1 place in the world, actually, to foster digital humanism and look into this from a more European values-related approach. So this is very much related to this data-enabled society we were talking about in the paper. As well, we were taking some considerations, which are that societal values should be at the heart of data use, that we are establishing governance and regulation, and that we are understanding opportunities. In this paper, for sure, related to Europe, I was taking it now here in brackets because I do think it is relevant for all people in a global approach. Saying this, referring to these considerations, that means as well in this outline, I do see a very good amount of knowledge and expertise in the humanities, and where I do see the role of humanities of high relevance, actually, and where I do detect that the humanities are not paying probably too much attention into. And this is exactly where I, with my work and with the two organizations I was talking about, are focused my interests of work. The work that we are doing is embedded in an open innovation research infrastructure, which was designed in a multi-stakeholder approach in 2017. We are referring to this with a hybrid or liquid and methodological infrastructure. And I would not like to get into the detail too much, just pointing you to some relevant points of it, probably look at it like that. On one hand, that we are considering the research process not just as a curiosity-driven research process, but a challenge-based as well. And the challenges are referring to the Sustainable Development Goals, for example. Furthermore, that we are looking into society and the role of society, a very tight interaction in a co-design and empowerment process with the infrastructure, and the society is referring to a quintuple helix model, which means that nature or environment is considered as an actor in this framework already. And finally, the research infrastructure is a hybrid one, as I've mentioned. So we do consider liquid labs on one hand that are virtual and connected, and on the other hand, physical studios that we are working with. And everything is kind of running via small ecosystems that are built and demonstrators and scenarios within this one. The one that you're seeing here in the approach is the Agate ecosystem, which means it was related to the framework of the all European academies and their knowledge, and was related to making knowledge of the academies more accessible and broader available. Now I would like, well, probably if we are getting back, just the final thing, this was kind of a design study and was an application for a Horizon 2020 project. The project unfortunately failed to be funded, but on the other hand, we created a movement out of that and have several partners now that are kind of furthering the mission with us. I would like now to point you to some projects that we are currently running on one hand, and on the other trying to show you what is the digital humanities content or part of it, for example, and then how I aim to think it further. because for sure as well, for me, it is true that the projects that I'm running were not primarily designed as applied humanities projects or projects that are dealing with open innovation in science. So one of the big projects I would like to introduce to you is Provide DH, the Progressive Visual Decision Making Under Uncertainties. That's a European project funded in the GIST era funding scheme and chaired by the University of Salamanca. And I am the chair of the Austrian part of it, where we are dealing with open innovation in science. The aim of this project is to develop a space to explore and assess, one, the completeness and evolution of digital research objects, two, the degree of uncertainty that the models applied to the data incorporate, and three, to share their perspectives and insights with the project's broad range of stakeholders. The data we are working with and the platform we are developing is related to TI. So we are working with the TI format in this project. What have we done so far? One thing we have developed or started actually to think about were taxonomies of uncertainty. And there we have to distinguish between a very sophisticated taxonomy where we were reviewing 11 existing uncertainty taxonomies in various areas of work on the one hand, and applied it to the data that we have in common. And on the other hand, we have developed a very simplified taxonomy out of this to deal with it for the project, for the prototype that we were developing on the platform, and as well for the visualization. So this shows as well how you have to bridge gaps and deal with your work. Within Provide DH, as I have mentioned, we are developing an open science platform. This is a screenshot of an annotated recipe that we were working with in the prototype. And here you see as well a little bit of how this could work. The platform is developed by the team in Poznan, chaired by Cesare Masurek, and we were dealing with the data and annotation in Vienna. So that means we were actually getting TI-related data sets already, which were recipes, historical recipes from the Gastrosophie group of the university in Salzburg. We had to reorganize the data a little bit so that it is compatible with our work. And then we started to get them into our prototype and aimed to work with them in our prototype with the citizen science group. How did we do that as well? When we were working with the group in various workshops, we kind of do some co-creation workshops where we are very much working with analog materials as well, with paper prototypes and paper-based materials, and as well with digital tools. And then we are kind of creating knowledge with the people in these sessions and try to feed it back to the group. So we are doing this kind of transfer process for this project, for this European project. Further, an outline that I'm giving is we are aiming to work on further visual approaches to analyze the uncertainties and networks. That's mainly done by the team in Salamanca, chaired by Roberto Teron. So what would now be, so that, let's say, put it like that, so far that's a typical digital humanities project, and how do we get into the applied humanities approach? So we were working with the recipes and thinking of how can we connect this or feed this into the Sustainable Development Goals. We were detecting that it can be related to health on one hand or sustainable consumption and production on the other, for example. So our idea was to participate in the Port Humanitarian Hackathon at CERN Idea Square. The Port Humanitarian Hackathons are now running for the 6th year, or for the 7th year, I do think this year. And the aim is to bring together innovators to impact the future and to act today. So they are definitely looking into a citizen innovation approach where they are aiming to bring together people that want to innovate, that want to make a change, and try to connect these people on the one hand with the challenge of a sustainable development goal, and on the other, offer them certain technologies and knowledge to do so. We have participated in the port 2 times, namely in 2018 and in 2019. In 2018, it was the first time that a challenge that was originating in the humanities has been formulated anyway. So it was definitely kind of starting from scratch. And in 2019, we were already a little bit more elaborated in doing so. So we were developing 2 things that are related to that. In 2018, we were prototypical developing the Orb Eat app. I will come back to this in a minute. And in 2019, we were focusing a little bit more on a platform, namely the so-called Feed Forward platform. And for both of them, it is relevant that food was seen as a product, a service, and an emotion. And from there, we were starting to get into the discussion and bringing in the cultural component, and as well, for sure, natural language programming and so on. In 2018, as I've mentioned, we were aiming to develop the Orb Eat app. This was an app that was designed to beat obesity and contribute to this problem of obesity. This is, as I would mention, an applied humanities project. We were doing the connection between a humanity-centered approach and discussing food as a framework of individual behavior and societal norms, and connecting this with the EEG, scientific measurements, and cultural knowledge. So we were bringing these both very different fields together and trying to make the most out of that. On the presentation paper, you see as well the screenshots and of a possible app. We did not get that far that we were able to already work on the app. In the right side, you see as well the role of obesity, and it was gaining actually within the last 30 years 600%. The World Health Organization mentions it as one of the big issues for health. So we were definitely starting from there, looking into this challenge, and then trying to find something where recipes and where knowledge and cultural knowledge could be of relevance. And the idea is to offer people kind of a more personalized experience, and as well a cultural related experience on how to eat healthy and how to trigger your behavior and change your behavior. And that is why the EEG scientific measurements were in a very kind of a very focus of our work, and we were definitely running several experiments related to that one that allow us to think that there is a connection in what we see and what we consider helpful and meaningful. On the other hand, the feed forward system, as we call it, is a system that we, or a platform where we aim to preserve and promote food heritage. So this is a project, I would say, which is a data-driven digital humanities project par excellence. We are aiming to bring together knowledge of data science, a nice web design, digital humanities, experience, artificial intelligence, natural language programming, and linguistics, and design thinking for the processes. So this is a very nice mixture of various results, and we are still working and in the process of applying this to our current work and offer let's say, at least a more severe prototype for it, mainly looking into a knowledge graph that's related to it. But considering actually knowledge that's related to food and to culture, offered us the opportunity to think in a different way about it and to collaborate with Philips. The challenge with Philips was to bring together kind of an innovation-driven business, which was in the very, let's say, in the primary innovation of Philips and our humanities knowledge and emerging technologies to customize a product. So that was, let's say, the overall idea. We were working together to detect on a certain product that is already on the market, how that could be, or whether it could be cultural customized, and what would be the next steps to do so. The results of this short-term collaboration in 2019, that was kind of lasting for 1 year, was the framework that we were developing, a framework for analyzing a product culturally, to develop an ontology or a taxonomy for cultural analysis and a concept for a cultural product design workshop. How should these workshops look like that we can detect ideas what cultural product design might be about, and that it might be more generalized and applicable. And this shows you already that the knowledge that we were kind of gaining during the process of these hackathons was already in a second step, aimed to be applied in this collaboration with Philips and pushing us towards new results. Another project I would like to introduce to you is the project Explore AT, in which we were developing a prototype for a knowledge graph for the Sustainable Development Goals. So we were aiming to bring together the Sustainable Development Goals, the knowledge management framework in the area, and people from with that expertise. We're aiming to develop a knowledge graphs, and we're aiming to apply participatory methods. So that, let's say that the last two were mainly the things that we were already very competent with. We were partnering with the UN One Planet Network, and it's mainly a platform for the Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is sustainable consumption and production. And still, due to the fact that they are bringing together various players in the field, or let's say all aiming to bring together all the relevant players in the field, our aim was to develop a proof of concept for a value case study and for this knowledge graph, which is related to the Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is actually about multi-stakeholder partnerships and the partnerships for the goals, because we consider it so relevant that people are working together in a good approach, and as well, it relates quite a lot to our participatory methods and how knowledge flows need to be designed. And finally, we were creating a white paper related to this. In this project, we are working with other partners. We are working with the Knowledge Management Academy in Vienna on one hand. We are working with Adapt Center at Dublin City University on the other. Now, we were running various workshops with this One Planet Network, as I've mentioned, and these workshops were mainly run as well during COVID-19 lockdown in Austria. That means all of our work was based on a virtual workshop application. So all our work that we usually were used to do in a proper face-to-face interaction and intervention was now in a virtual surrounding, which was quite different. So we did have to do this transfer as well. And I would say it worked out quite well because the partners did already work together, or there was always one partner. One partner was already working with the One Planet network. I was already working with this partner. So there was always a connecting person. And that was why we did work together in trust from beginning on. What you see here is that we were developing personas, and these personas were developed by the One Planet network, and these personas are related to a knowledge management or development model. So they are very much related to, on the one hand, what the knowledge management is asking them anyway to do. So the personas were not something that were not helpful for them beyond the knowledge graph. So they were very much related to their ongoing workflow anyway. And this model was by our partner, Andreas Brandner from the Knowledge Management Academy. So actually, both of these very essential results for the knowledge graph were contributed by partners from a non-scientific unit. So that's relevant as well in acquiring knowledge and making use of knowledge that's available, and on creating scientifically tools and results that are reused in the society. This is already then a few into our prototype, which was realized by my staff member Renato Rojas Sousa. There we are working with relations and for sure as well already existing relations that are related. Here you see the web file visualization of the graph. I would not like to get into detail during my presentation. If you would like to talk about it, we can do that afterwards. I just wanted to point out, and here you as well see in a very good way, I do think, where we are building on knowledge that's available in the society on the one hand, and then making something new out of that with knowledge that's related to a digital humanities unit in a typical way. So what you might have seen with that is as well that we are pushing ourselves very much on the frontiers of a comfort zone, aiming to learn and aiming to grow, and due to the fact go together through a fear zone. And as I've already pointed out a little bit with the collaboration with the One Planet network and the partners in the Sustainable Development Graph, it is very important that we trust each other during this process and find mind-alike people that are ready to go through this fear zone, because something new is never ever something that is easy to go through with anybody. And if you apply this to the current time, and who do I want to be during COVID-19? That's the question that we were asking when the pandemic started, when it got so virulent and when it changed so much of our working conditions. Then we were very much looking into as well, aiming to grow, aiming to make the most out of that still, and very much looking into how can we make our talents available to those who need them, and how can we make our knowledge available for those how can we do something of relevance, of purpose, probably put it like that. So finally, I would like to introduce a project related to COVID-19 and insights related to that, which we call the COVID-19 Insights Mapping Diversity and Community. This is a collaboration project I run with Elia and Gabriel Casena from Namson in France on the one hand, and Dario Rodriguero from MIT MetaLab at Harvard in the US. So this collaboration mainly started as well, or let's say the operational collaboration started during COVID-19 lockdown in Austria as well, which means in the first quarter of this year. We did work on a diversity index where we are looking into the origin of people, I call it here as well, with early on ethnicity of people, which is related to applied onomastics, actually knowledge which is very much founded in humanities disciplines, etymology, and so on. And on the other hand, applying it to the COVID-19 data set from Wang et al. In 2020, where we are working with more than 20,000 papers that are accessible and dealing with the COVID-19 research, early research on that. So what we aim to do, clustering people and terms, build communities, and map diversity. What are the results of this relatively short term project right now? We're creating data sets of relevance and share these data sets already that are clustered, that are offering kind of these origin connection and as well related scripts. We were building, for example, this diversity index and furthering it towards a biocultural diversity index. We were creating interactive visualizations on one hand, an analog visualization, a board where you can work with an Artivive app and get kind of the story behind the board, and on the other, a digital board that is accessible online. We were running one intervention already at Ars Electronica Festival in 2020 in Deep Space. Deep Space is a high resolution space where we, at a first glance, just had a Zoom meeting where we presented our work and where we are now aiming to get it, to run it as a stable exhibition. And on the other hand, we are planning to have a virtual intervention at Pixel Conference Vienna in 2020. This is a conference more related to a festival, probably related to scientific and digital visualization. We were applying for a grant that helps us to get these visualizations as an exhibition object in Ars Electronica, and finally, we were writing a scientific paper for Leonardo. Why do I tell these all? It shows you that there are various results that might not be considered typical outputs or outcomes for a scientific or DH-related project, and that take us a lot of time. For example, the interventions on festivals that are on this very straight connection with the community and with people, which is not just knowledge transfer and which is not just knowledge communication. It is meant as a transformation of knowledge into action from our point of view. So we definitely would like to make happen a change and to work together. So that's actually one of the next steps with the people that are mentioned in our network and show them. So finally, I would like to show you these visualizations and give you a little bit of a glance how they look like. This is the cartography of COVID-19 results, which represents the most active researchers since the beginning of the pandemic. And at a first glance, here you see kind of a geography of the most relevant keywords, and if you zoom in, you get a connection to the people that are related to this, and then you as well get more information about the clusters, so you can zoom and explore in this framework. This visualization is online available for free. And in this visualization, Dario plays mainly with the following arrangements, namely with background, with the edges, with the cartography, which is the, let's say, most important building element, why we call it the COVID-19 cartography, with keywords for pairs, with nodes, and finally with keywords for triplets. This is the second visualization originating by the family Casena. it is the analog board, actually Chinese Z, which is representing ethnicities. And here it is a picture I took during the presentation at Deep Space at in the Festival of Ars Electronica. So you see that's an amazing, huge interaction board. And what you see on this is, again, the distribution or the contribution of authors of a certain ethnicity to a certain topic. And the blue, the big blue board in the background of the picture is the contribution of Chinese researchers to a certain research term or topic or concept. So this shows that China kind of is overwhelming contributing to COVID literature, especially in the beginning of the pandemic. So because we are mainly referring to papers that were relevant in the beginning of the COVID-19 process. And we see it is nearly in all topics, nearly to the half. So that's amazing, important. For example, if you look into the green line in the middle, where you do have a triangle in the middle, you see that's, for example, the French contribution. And you see in France, it is, and in most of the other countries and nations, it is much more that the data are much more focused on a certain topic, and the research clusters are much more related to certain clusters rather than to everything in a very, very broad way. Again, I want to show this in finally. We are definitely looking into learning and growing. We are very much looking into getting known what you are doing and trying to make this bridge from your knowledge, from your work into applications. And I would be quite happy to do so and to see what you're doing. With this, I want to say thank you again for having me, and thank you for listening to my presentation. I'm curious about your feedback.